Gemara. We're discussing whether one is allowed to have relations for the very first time the night of Friday night. And we went down two paths what possible of Aveda you're infringing. Either is because the dam nifka pocket, just 1 second. Either do we view the dam as sitting in a separate chamber, and the malacha that we're worried about is you made a pesach, you made a door, and in a way it's a davar she'einu miskaven, unintentional, but it's the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha like Rabbi Shimon. On the other hand, also it's being destructive because before she was a psula, now she's no longer a psula. So how do we view that? Or whether this dam is considered attached and you're making a chabola. And again, it's a davar she'einu miskaven. That wasn't the intention at all, and we go through the same exercise. And then we brought down that the yeshiva of Rab felt that Rab as one was lenient. They're all trying to be lenient. You're permitted, which would sound like it's because it's davar she'einu miskaven. So the Gemara has a question over here. How can you say 4 lines at the top of the page of Vavam and Aleph? Kumlan of Black Kamara of Vavam and Aleph. But Rab Shori, and the Rab is you're saying Rab permits Friday night according to the yeshiva of Rab. They said he permitted Friday night. Let me ask a question. What am I saying about Chizki Mashmei the Rab? It's on the Chizki name of Rab. Haim Mutzuchrayid and is also this bottle stopper. You have a barrel of beer, and you have a bottle stopper like you have a shmata that you want to plug the hole with. Is also lahadoika. You're not allowed to squeeze it in. Bigam matava. You're not allowed to squeeze it in. What's the date if you squeeze it in? When you squeeze it in, you're actually squeezing out wine. It's like schita. And what exactly is aveda schita? So the big machlek is a shaynim generally. Rashi says like schita, which means it'd be like malabin, laundering. And even though this is beer or it could be wine, it's discoloring it still. It's laundering. You're cleaning it a little bit by rinsing, wringing it out. You're cleaning it a little bit. Rabbi Tam disagrees. He says that libun or malabin is only with water, not with other things. He says it's more to do with mefarik. In other words, in malabin, we don't care about the liquid. All you care about is the material that you're wringing it from, that it should be clean. Mefarik is separating, the seeds from the husk. So mefarik, you are separating the liquid from wherever the source, like grapes. There you intend to have the liquid. You intend to have the liquid. So that's the melacha here, and that is mefarik. Okay. You now do that on Yom Tov. So what do we see from here? It's a davar she'einu miskaven. It's unintentional, and yet Rav clearly said, "You're not do that on Yom Tov. You're not do that on Yom Tov." Now, the reason others say you cannot be a mefarik over here, which is a main time as well. The reason why it cannot be mefarik is because it introduces the famous concept of the aruch, which is that even if something is inevitable, psigration, but if it's like nichle, for example, here the beer is going to the floor and it's getting lost, a psigration nichle you are not liable for at all. So then it wouldn't have been usher this case over here. So we have interesting. The Aruch himself learns the Gemara, the Pshat here. The problem is nothing with squeezing. The problem is if you're leaving it, if you tend to leave it there forever, as if you created a device, you created a utensil on Yom Tov and Shabbos because you plug the hole and you'll plan to leave it there forevermore. That's the issue. Anyways, our question here is: we see clearly Rav hold that davar she'einu miskaven is forbidden. So how can you say that Friday night the davar she'einu miskaven is permitted? Says the Gemara. One question. The Bahut Afil Shimoid, the Baye, the Robert, the right. They both say Moshe Psilishlo Yamos. So the Gemara says, yes. So therefore, everyone agrees. No, really, everyone. Maybe Rav hold davar she'einu miskaven permitted like Rav Shimon, but in the case of the Sukhrai in that case of the bottle stopper, over there, when you plug the hole, it's a psigration. It's inevitable. When you pull it out, you're going to wring it out. So therefore, if it's inevitable, that's why it's us. Everybody will agree. So right in the middle of the page, you're telling me Rav holds that Friday night is permitted because davar she'einu miskaven. Clearly, Rav said halachic Rabbi Yehuda that davar she'einu miskaven is forbidden, so it should be forbidden Friday night. And furthermore, Shmuel says that halachic Rabbi Shimon is lenient. And Rabbi Yehuda actually not even people saying the names, but directly Rav says halachic Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel halachic Rabbi Shimon. So you're right. Still, Friday night, Rav can hold it permitted, even if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, Shemes Kavan is awesome. That is how. And we're going to go through each lashon. The one who says that the issue here is that Dam Mifka Pocket, that really the blood is sitting in a separate chamber. And the problem is that you're making a Pesach, and you're making a doorway. It's a Mekalkul who it's a Davar Shemes Kavan. Rav should say it's forbidden. No, but remember we had the question of it's constructive or destructive. Mekalkul, it's a Pesach. It's considered destructive because she's no longer psul. So therefore, Rav would say it's permitted, even though it's a davar she'ein miskaven. And lahachlish, according to that opinion, the one who said that the problem is the blood is considered part of the tissue there, and therefore you're by extracting, by tearing open the hymen, extracting, you're making a wound, is mekalkul b'chaburu. Again, it's destructive for the same reason. Okay, Moshe Rav Chiza asked the question. If you want to say, and there are two opinions whether Friday night is permitted or not permitted, we had brought top of the page between Rav and Shmuel, depending which region they're coming from. So let me ask you, how do you learn trap? This is following. It says, Tanoikis Shaloi Higia, Zman Alida is a girl underage, under 12 years old. She didn't reach puberty. Benisasa, she got married. And sometimes marriage itself could bring on puberty. So Beishamai says, we're going to say the first 4 nights, any bleeding that she sees is part of her hymen, nothing to do with her cycle. And therefore, she's not a nida. Beisil says, in this case, as if it bleeds every single night, we'll assume that this is to do with the hymen, nothing to do with the nida, until it stops bleeding for a short time, and then it starts bleeding again. Now we can say this is it. It could be for 4 months. Doesn't matter. Higia is manolita. What if she reached puberty, but she hadn't seen yet? But she did reach puberty now. Then Sasha got married. How? So what happens in this case? And then she bleeds to be assumed it's nida or not. Beishamai says Beishamai says only the first night. No matter how many times they have relations, we're going to assume all that blood is from hymen. Anything beyond the first night, we'll say it's because she reached puberty. And Beisil says Ad Mitzvah Shabbos Arba Leilos. We give her 4 nights. Now the more understands that. That 4 nights means that if you didn't have relations Wednesday night, then Thursday night, Friday night, Shabbat night, those 4 nights we're going to attribute the dam to the hymen. Anything beyond that, we'll say it's a nidja. So clearly it says there that we give you 4 nights if you haven't started. That means you can start on Friday night. So clearly you have here in the Braisa, so you can start Friday night. My love, the Eloi ball, matzah. If you haven't yet had relations Friday night, Friday night can be the first night. So it's a question of those who say that you cannot commence on Friday night. So the Gemara, I am Eloi ball matzah. I feel b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos. So the Gemara, Amar Rava says Rava, loy means lebar m'Shabbos. It means the 4 nights apart from Friday night. So rather Abai jumps in. Amar Abai ad Motzei Shabbos. Not just 4 nights. It says 4 nights until Motzei Shabbos. Clearly, why is it spelled until Motzei Shabbos? He wants to conclude Friday night. That Friday night can be the first night as well. Arba Leil says till Motzei Shabbos 4 nights. So the only way you can have 4 nights starting Wednesday night is including Friday night. Elam Rava. Kishabah, who told you that we give you 4 nights? It's talking about if you haven't had relations. No, the Chiddush of Hillel is that since this girl never saw yet, even though she reached puberty, so the first 4 nights, even though she had relations the first night and then repeated the second, the third, the fourth, and she's bleeding, we'll say that this will attribute it to her psulim. Only after that do we start saying that the nida kicked it. So the Gemara, if the whole story is talking about that she was boiled. And the whole chiddush here is that any blood that comes out is called dam psulim, but not dam nida. So why stress Motzei Shabbos? Let's just say 4 nights. My kamasha, just say 4 nights. The first 4 nights, since even though she reached puberty, she never saw before, but it's attributed to her psulim. Why do you have to spell out Motzei Shabbos? It's as if we're trying to say that you haven't yet started, and you can even start Friday night. Kamashlan, the shodi l'mivu b'Shabbos. No, it's coming to tell you that even though you started Wednesday night, no, we're not talking about for the first time or Friday night. Maybe first time Friday night you're not allowed to. You had relations Wednesday night and Thursday night. you're permitted to have Friday night. And why would you think you can't? It's not the first time. Kiddush Shmuel, this follows the view of Shmuel. Shmuel says, if you have a doorway, it's very, very tight, and you're allowed to move away some of the rocks so you can walk inside, so you're not creating anything new. They say, even though that you're being measured, so even though you're moving some rocks, because you're not really building anything new, the doorway is already existing, just a bit tight, so you're moving a few of the rocks. Same thing here. That it's not, that doesn't all disappear the hymen in one go. It takes a few days. So it's going to tell you that maybe Friday night you're not allowed to for the first time, but if it's the third time, even though there's still a little bit left, but since most of the doorways already been opened, you're allowed to continue. It's not a problem. Maybe that's what it's trying to tell you. There's no proof one way or another. Okay, the Gemara continues down this path. Most of Rabbi Yisrael has a question we learned in Gemara Brachas. We learned Gemara with the concept of a oisik mitzvah potter ben a mitzvah. Somebody's involved in a mitzvah, potter a mitzvah, and we said a chassan the night of his wedding is not, even though his mind is totally focused on the mitzvah the very first time, pru revu. So therefore, the chassan is exempt from reading Krishma. Most of it says Chosn Potter Mekrishma Laila Rishon, the very first night, ad Motzei Shabbos till Motzei Shabbos. When im loy osta ma'isa, if he hasn't yet consummated their marriage, then every single till Motzei Shabbos, he's thinking about the mitzvah. If 4 nights went by and nothing happened, and the 5th night already, by then he's settled already. He's not so distracted. My love, what do we think we're talking about here? The Torah, the Baal Middle. Whatever, every night he's thinking tonight he's going to have a relationship with her. So he's thinking about a mitzvah, and therefore he's exempt from Christmas. So clearly, Friday night is one of those nights. It's included. As the Gemara, Abai says, like the Torah, the Leibol. Interesting. Abai says when we say that the chassan is potter from because not Friday night, not because he's about to have a relation, maybe not allowed to, but it bothered him that it didn't happen yet before. He's still thinking about a mitzvah, and he's perturbed. So he wants to do the mitzvah for whatever reason. It didn't happen, not the night before, and that's what he's sitting over there tonight and all worried about. So even though Friday night you're not allowed to, he's still exempt from Krishma because he's concerned about the mitzvah, the lack of the mitzvah, and the lack of the mitzvah is also an excuse. Says the Gemara, that's so. You didn't do a mitzvah, and because you're concerned and you can't focus, you're exempt. That's your question. We had Zing Marsuk as well. What's it? It's bothering him that what? He's in pain. The fact that he didn't do the mitzvah. Just if you're not doing a mitzvah, just because you're nervous or you're distracted and you're in pain, you're potter. Let me answer the question. Thomas Vinos Bayam, you just heard the terrible news that the $1 trillion collapsed, or you heard that the ship just submerged. Hachinami, the potter. You can tell me that it's potter. You can tell me it's Hachinami Yeso. And Oval is obligated to do all the mitzvahs. And Oval is very, very concerned. And chutz min hat tefillin, except for tefillin, shenember, it says, Yecheskel was told, you should wear your crown. That means, but all other avelim should not wear their crown. So, and it's only tefillin. It's only tefillin because tefillin is called pe'ed, and the Zash explains, and an oval is not in the moment, the mood of pe'er, and so it's like ashes on his head. But all the mitzvahs, he's chayiv. But what is he from here? That an oval is chayiv in all the mitzvahs of the Torah, even though he's in tsar. Now, there's no mitzvah for an oval to be in tsar. All the avelas that a person does, all the shiva and everything else that a person does is to show kavod hames. There's no mitzvah to have tsar. So it's not a mitzvah. But if you're a Abai, telling me he's not doing a mitzvah Friday night either. So it's not doing the mitzvahs just because you're in tsar. That's not an excuse. Abai holds that even though you're not doing a mitzvah, if the tsar comes as about as a result of a mitzvah or lack of a mitzvah, that's enough. But Rabbi holds no, you have to actually actively do a mitzvah. Rabbi says, Rabbi says, actually, it's machleket tanoim, and that is the Tanakh Chad we learned in one place whether Friday night imlay asa ma'isa berishin potter b'sheni potter b'shlishi. It says clearly here the third night, which is Friday night, so you potter shlishi as well. So see, this Tan hold that Friday night you're permitted. The Tan idach rishon v'sheni potter shlishi chayiv, and the other brayza says that Wednesday night and Thursday night you're potter, but Friday night you're chayiv because you cannot have a relation for the first time. So we see clearly from here it's a machlekes tonight. Abaye hosam nami betir de pligi. Abaye says no. You know what they're arguing about? So you have a brayza clearly says you cannot. You're not potter on Friday night. It would sound like the reason why you're not potter Friday night is because you're not allowed to have. Bila Friday night. Says you want to know. Abaye says no. Everyone agrees you don't have Bila Friday night, but that itself is a machlekes of Tanoim. The fact that you're in pain for the lack of a mitzvah is not an excuse of that. Hasanami, the particular plea they're actually arguing about this very point is since you couldn't have done the mitzvah the last few nights and because of your pain, is that an excuse to since it has a result of a mitzvah, the lack of a mitzvah, is that a good enough excuse that you're potter from Krishma or not? Because it's a bit hard to say oisik bin mitzvah potter the mitzvah, or do we say no? This is because a result of the mitzvah, therefore the lack of mitzvah, you cannot concentrate. That's good enough in your potter. Pliye v'hani tanoim, and these tanoim, kihani tanoim, in fact these tanoim are based on other tanoim. It can't be learned. Hakoinus is a psula, says klil nebraisa. Somebody marries a psula, lo yivel bechil b'Shabbat Friday night should not be the first night. Chachamim matilin. Clearly we have an argument. Man chachamim. Who are these chachamim that permit you on Friday night for the first time? But maybe it's Shimoni. Shimoni holds davar shem miskaven, whether the malacha is making a pesach but it's unintentional, or whether malacha is chabura that's unintentional, or davar shem miskaven mutter. Abai asked a question which we already discussed yesterday. Whichever way you learn, it's still a psikresha. You knew it's inevitable the door will open. You knew it's inevitable that you're going to make a wound. So it's a psikresha. Everyone holds your chayv. No. So Rabbi said to Abaye, not like these people from Bavel. They have no idea of how to have a relationship without tearing through the hymen. There are a number of people that are baki bahata. They know how to circumvent the hymen and still have relations without ripping or tearing the hymen. So therefore, it's not a psikration anymore. That's inevitable. You can make a pesach because there's a way of getting around it. Says the Gemara, Im Kain, toided. Lama. So if so, why did you say that you're potter because he's all concerned about the what do you call it, the mitzvah and so on and so forth? What do you mean? He can still on Friday night. You can still. The whole reason is also because you're doing an aveda. So, but if you know how to overcome not making a pesach and not making a bleed, so then what's the problem? Why is he so tired? We're talking here about not everybody is a baki. There are those who know how to avoid making a pesach, and there are those who don't know how to avoid. So the Gemara, so why don't you spell it out? Those who are a baki can have the first relations Friday night, and those who are not experts in this area should not have relations Friday night. So the Gemara, the vast majority of the people are baki. They don't have to spell it out. The vast people are baki. They know how to. So Friday night, they be more careful, make sure that they don't make a pesach, they don't create a pesach, they don't cause it to bleed. The way they used to be, we'll learn later in the Gemara, is they used to have like a best man, somebody who would just to make sure that the chosim wouldn't, come up with a story that she wasn't a psula and somehow get out of the marriage or something. So they would have two shushbani, one for him, one for her, and in order to test to see whether there was any blood. And if she was really a psula or not. So what's the point of having shudbani? What's the point of having mappa? If most people are baki, he can, if he wants to make tsaras, if he wants to make trouble, he will make sure that he doesn't cause any bleeding. And then he'll walk around tomorrow morning and say, hey, she wasn't a psula. Completely ruin her life. So it's mappa lama. And what is the idea of a map having a white shield underneath there? What are you going to see? If he wants to cause trouble, he can still cause trouble. So what's the point? Amalei, he said to him, Hasu, you know why we do that? Shema Yira v'Yover. No, we know we did that because there are many people who are not so particular at the time, and therefore he'll cause it to bleed. And then he'll decide to make up a story, and he'll take the towel or the white sheet, toss it away, and say there was no blood. The point is as follows: if he was able to maneuver himself in a way where he circumvented this issue of ripping the door, she can always, and he comes along and says there's no blood, she can always say my hymen is still intact. In fact, we didn't have proper relations. But if he did make her bleed, and then he tosses away the white sheet, then the fact is she's no longer psula, and she can no longer defend herself, can't prove anything. Therefore, to avoid that, that's why we have these shushbanim and so on. Most of Rabban has a question. Okay, that's another question. Hamap is Musa Shabbos. If somebody goes ahead and squeezes out a boil on Shabbos. Now, if you opened up your wound in order to take out the pus, and the definition of a Pesach is that you want air to come in and the liquid to come out, the pus to come out. So that's called a Pesach. A Pesach is a door. A door was meant to go in and to go out. If you only wanted to go one way, it's not a door. So we say it follows. If your map is Musa Shabbos, if the purpose is to make an opening, then you're chayiv, because you just created a Pesach, and you're chayiv because boine, and we know that even on a human being there's boine, because the expression that Hashem used when Chava said vayiven es hatzela, he built up the ribs. So we see that you can say by a person boine. If your purpose is only the door to work one way, to take out the pus, you are potter. You are totally potter. You're totally potter. So the same thing over here. Let's say that what do you call it? In the case of psula, all you want is the blood to come out. So you should be potter. And not only potter, by the case of the boil, because you're in pain, you're allowed to go ahead and to make that little pinch in the thing there, prick it so that the pus should come out. Over here, it's for a mitzvah. So l'chayda should be permitted as well. So how could there be an opinion that says that Friday night you're not allowed to do it because maybe you make a Pesach, you make an opening, but even though it's also the Rabbanah, but here you're allowed to do it for a mitzvah. But answers the big difference. Hassam over the pocket over there, the pus is sitting together. Okay, and when you open up, you make a hole in the skin, the entire pus comes out. So therefore, it's gone. Hach over here, pocket v'loyaka. Here by Dam Sulam doesn't all go out in the first time. You know, a little bit of the blood, even though we said, even if you hold it's in a chamber, a little bit of blood is sort of, because it sat there so long, it's sort of absorbed in the skin. So it's like you are extracting, it's like you're doing a chabola, and that's why it's usher as well. So it's more than just making a door here. It's even if you hold the main infringement was making a door, creating a door, but also it looks a little bit like you're doing a chabura, like you're making a wound, and therefore it is usher. Now the Gemara said, Rabami permitted first time Friday night. Rabbanah said, well, like Kesuvos. So when they get married, like we said yesterday, you're not get married on Shabbos because you're making a kinyan. You're not do a transaction on Shabbos. So you have to get married Friday afternoon. First of all, we can learn more later that many places never even wrote a Kesuvos because it's a Tanai Bezin. Where there's not a Tanai Bezin, where Bezin doesn't enforce it, so then everyone wrote a Kesuvos. But it seems that in those days they used to write a Kesuvos after the wedding. The same day, but after the wedding. But as soon as the wedding was over, it was ready Friday night. They couldn't write a Kesuvos. What happens then? So we say, what happens then is you have to give us some kind of security. You have to give us some kind of security, and that is a law, by the way. If somebody loses a Kesuvos until you write a new one, which we say, you're not allowed to live with your wife without a Kesuvos, because the Rabbanah made takana to make sure that there is a Kesuvos, a protection for every woman, because otherwise they don't feel that confident and they don't feel that they're in a stable marriage. You can just go out and say, I have no money. So everyone has to have a Kesuvos. If you lose the Kesuvos, you have to rewrite the Kesuvos. It's called the Shtar of the Ichas, a special kind of Kesuvos, different text altogether, a Kesuvos that was lost and was found. Not found, and had to be rewritten. But in the interim, you have to give us something of value as a security. And therefore, it's talking about over here that Friday, you give us security. So the Ritva already asks, how can you do this on Shabbos? You're not allowed to give a kinyan on Shabbos. So he answers, either you gave the security right after the wedding before Shabbos, just take a second to give some security, or in this case, because it's not really a kinyan. Security is only that I'm going to give you a Kesuvos, after Shabbos, Sunday, Monday. Therefore, it's just to appease her. It's not really so much a security that we normally say or a kinyan. Therefore, it's permitted. Rab Zvid showed the middle of the Shabbos. Zvid said also Friday night is permitted. Ikidam Zvid gukvit ball b'chil Shabbos. He himself paskin, and he allowed people to be that, or he himself was boiled for the first time Friday night. Rabbi Yehuda showed the middle b'chil Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda went ahead and said you allowed it for the first time on Yom Tov as well. Don't be medai. Don't infer from that only on Yom Tov, because Yom Tov is more relaxed than Shabbos, and because a malach on Yom Tov is only a lav, on Shabbos is skila. So don't think that the Yom Tov the shadi hab Shabbos also, but Shabbos is forbidden. Who are dealing for Shabbos? Not Shabbos. It's permitted Yom Tov, permitted Shabbos as well. But in my shari kachay, that's only a fact. On Yom Tov he permitted it, because Shabbos also permitted it. Now Papa the Yom Tov shadi Shabbos also. Papa, however, the name of Rava says that no, that it's interesting. A puppy are constantly arguing what Rava said. It's like they lived it's like they were students of Rava, not at the same time. Remember, Rava, a number of places in Shas changes his mind. It's like a puppy heard Rava one stage of his life, and a papa heard Rava another stage of his life. And I guess whichever one was later is the one that the Allah is going to be like. And we usually pass like a papa. Either papa in the Rava and beyond or a puppy, depends, I guess. And a papa must be the Rava and beyond permitted, and B'Shabbos also, but Shabbos forbidden. Why are you making a distinction between Yom Tov and Shabbos? Why should Shabbos be more relaxed, more forbidden than on Yom Tov? My daitach, what do you think? That on Yom Tov are permitted because we have a concept in Lung Marbei, it's called Metoich. Metoich shehuter chabura l'tzayich, huter nami shalei l'tzayich. On Yom Tov we have permission, anything to do with oichel nefesh, to do with consumption and to give you simcha on Yom Tov you're allowed to. That oichel nefesh is permitted. So do we say that once it's permitted for the things for oichel nefesh, a particular malacha, like you're allowed to carry for oichel nefesh, you're allowed to carry also other things. So is that what your logic is? That's why since you're allowed to do on Yom Tov certain things, therefore you're allowed to do as well. For example, you're allowed to do chabur on Yom Tov, shchita, you're allowed to shech on Yom Tov. So that's why you think you're allowed to boil on Yom Tov, but Shabbos you're allowed to. El Miata, if you're going to follow that principle, mutter lasses mugmir be Yom Tov. So let's follow your line of reasoning. You should be able to put, burn incense on Yom Tov on your clothing to give it a good fragrance. Because you follow the concept of Metoich. Now, in other words, he was trying to say, everyone agrees in the concept of Metoich, not everyone, but still, we had Gemara Beya. But the Papi was saying, it doesn't apply universally. It's things that you really need for Yom Tov. And like Mugmer, you can live without Mugmer on Yom Tov. So the same thing here. Bil also, you can wait. That's what his question is. You can wait. Papa said, no, the rule is Alecha Makra. So the pasuk says, Yom Tov is different. It has to be davar hashav l'chol nefesh, something that applies to everybody. Everybody gets married, so therefore will you apply the rule of metoich when it comes to first time Friday night. But when it comes to mugma, only wealthy people do that. So there's not davar. There's a very important rule in Yom Tov. The only thing we permit is a davar hashav l'chol nefesh. And in fact, many people want to use that now that you're not allowed to smoke a cigarette on Yom Tov because it's no longer a davar hashav l'chol nefesh. It's no longer an activity that is by the majority. The majority don't smoke. So they want to ask it based on that. Not to find this wrong reasoning. This dam is generations later, and this dam like to be Yom Tov. Let's say you happen to have a deer on Yom Tov. Yeah, you're allowed to shecht. What about a deer? Venison. Venison is rare. I remember just when we came to Australia, right before then, Velda Krinsky, who was the sheikh here in Yeshiva, shechted a deer. And heard from everybody that it sold out in 2 seconds. Everybody wanted to see what it's like, and everybody came back. They had no idea how to cook it because they used the same way of cooking as beef. They use it for venison, and it turned out to be a disaster. But it's a rarity and it's a commodity. But definitely most people can't afford it. So according to you, if it's not shava l'chol nefesh, you're telling me that it's not permitted in Yom Tov. So you're not allowed to shech the deer in Yom Tov. No such din. There's 2 rules. One is it has to be something applicable to everybody. Another thing is it has to be something that you need it. For example, eating you need. It doesn't matter if it's not everybody eats this particular food, but food is something that you need on Yom Tov, and that's the basis for the mitech. It's tzvi tzolachol nefesh. Anybody who wants to eat something eating, and eating is tzolachol nefesh. So bottom line is they want to say that Yom Tov, but Papa say Yom Tov is different than Shabbos because you have the concept of mitech. Big machlek is how far we take metoich. Is metoich something like duchui or something like hutra? Is metoich, since on Yom Tov you're allowed to do these activities, so that means that the whole malacha is permitted, or no, the malacha is still forbidden, but this overrides it. And the nafkamina is, let's say you want to carry something, but it's not any benefit for Yom Tov at all. You carry a siddur or a talus, there's a benefit for Yom Tov, so you're allowed to carry to shul. But for example, take it back home. Are you allowed to take it back home? Because there's no benefit for Yom Tov. You don't need it anymore. How far do we take metoich? Do we say mutter completely? Big machlek is in Taisus and Taisus in other places. If it has to still be tzorech hayom tzas, or it's completely mutter. You want to carry a baby, it's for a walk on Yom Tov, not because you're taking them to shul, taking them to eat somewhere. Are you allowed to do that on Yom Tov? How far do we take metoich? So let's just finish the sugya. Says the Gemara, Amar Yaakov Baridi. Rabbi Yaakov Baridi says, Rabbi Yechon and Tzayden said you're not allowed to have activity the first time Friday night. Says the Gemara, and he made a ruling, very interesting Gemara here. He made a ruling to say Asr, as Rashi explains beautifully. Rashi says for a rabbi to come along and say this is treif, you don't have to be a rabbi. Anybody can say that. Anybody doesn't know will say, okay, it's treif. In order to be a real rabbi, you have to know when to say it's permitted. Because to say something is permitted, you have to know your stuff. You have to have the basis of halacha. You can't just say things are permitted. Something might be treif. So you're telling me that he said you shouldn't do it Friday night. That's not hayra. You're saying do it, be machmir. Hayra would have been if you said you could do it on Friday night. That's called a hayra. Otherwise, what's the big kunz? Gemara says, yes, we do find the expression hayra even when it comes to Isa as well. When it's not stamped because you don't know and you're being machmir, because you know, and it's asa. For example, now we learned haru Basil ruled shetain is 0 8 sheva shani machedes. She should be a nazir for another 7 years. We learned in Masechta Nazir that Helani Amalka made a neder that if her son went to war comes back, she wants to make sure her son is safe and everything else. She'll become a nazir for 7 years. Then she was a chutzlaret, and then she went to Yisrael. And Basil ruled that she has to do another 7 years because chutzlaret Eretz Amim is automatically tummy, and doesn't all be tummy. So he penalized her because she was another chutzlaret. And when she came to Israel, she had to start all over again. And then something happened in between, and she had to do another 7 years. For 21 years, she was a nazir. So it says in the expression, he was machmir. He said hayrua. He ruled that she has to repeat it. So we do find the expression ruling when it comes to us. So in other words, when it's not because he's machmir stam, it's because he legislated, then you can use the word hayrua. The hayrua. We learned. Another case, chut hasheder. You have a spine. Shenifsig berubah. The majority of it was split. Divrei Rebbe says that it's treif. Rabbi Yaakov said, I feel naked. You don't need a spine that should be cut most of it, even if it's just a puncture. It's already a problem. Hoyre Rabbi Yaakov, Hoyre Rebbe Rabbi Yaakov. Rebbe then ruled like Rabbi Yaakov, even a puncture. So here again, he's being machmir, and he uses the word hoyre. In other words, he decided to legislate like Rabbi Yaakov. I'm going to ain't Allah Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi says Allah not Rabbi Yaakov. This is how we learned it. This is the version of what happened. They asked Rabbi Yechon and I heard. By Nasham, I heard. Can one have relations for the very first time on Friday night? He said, Usher is forbidden. But the Hilchot Allah is mutter liboil betchila b'Shabbos. This wraps up the whole sukkah. You're allowed to have your first relations on Friday night. And even though today, we're going to get married much later, so a lot of these things don't really apply, we still follow all the same rules. Okay.